I was grabbing coffee with an old friend's younger brother last week. Let's call him Leo. Leo is 24 sharp, and for the last 6 months, he's been dating Maya. He showed me her picture on his phone. She's stunning, radiant, and according to him, she's the most supportive partner he's ever had. He was practically beaming as he showed me their chat logs, thousands of messages where she validated his every ambition and, perfectly mirrored his moods. To Leo, he'd cracked the code of modern life. He'd secured 100% of the emotional reward of a relationship with 0% of the traditional cost or the risk of rejection. But as we sat there, I noticed something chilling. Leo didn't have that restless, hungry energy you expect from a man in his prime. There was no drive in his eyes. When a group of real women sat at the table next to us, he didn't even look up. It wasn't that he was being polite. It was as if they were invisible. He just patted the phone in his pocket and gave this small, satisfied smile, looking entirely sedated. It reminded me of the beautiful ones from the famous mouse utopia experiments, the males who stopped competing, stopped mating, and just focused on grooming themselves in a world where every need was met without effort. By 2026, we're seeing the human version of that evolutionary self-destruct protocol. We're calling it the AI companion boom, but beneath the surface, it looks more like a mass digital castration. We are witnessing the precise algorithmic removal of the male competitive instinct replaced by a digital heroine that makes social withdrawal feel like a victory. The question is, when the friction of reality is removed, what actually remains of the man?
That story about Leo, that's it right there. Yeah. It's the perfect real-world example of what we're digging into today.
It's happening all around us.
It is. And so our mission for this deep dive is to take this the stack of really dense sources, neuroscience, sociology, economics, and use them to actually explain the mechanisms behind this quiet withdrawal.
Right. This isn't just about, people are on their phones too much. This is deeper.
So much deeper. We're looking at what happens when our sort of evolved biology crashes headfirst into perfectly optimized code.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our sources frame this whole phenomenon, this mass digital retreat, through 3 really distinct lenses.
Exactly. We're going from the micro up to the macro. So first we'll start with the neurobiology of success. We're talking about something called the winner effect.
And how AI just completely short-circuits it.
Completely. Then we zoom out to the macro sociology of collapse. And this is where we draw these, frankly, terrifying parallels to the behavioral sink.
Calhoun's mouse experiments.
The very same. And finally, we'll look at it from a colder perspective, the economic rationale. We're going to analyze this choice, choosing an AI partner as a form of strategic risk hedging.
Okay, but before we even get to AI, there's this foundational concept that all our sources point to, the one that makes this whole thing possible. Evolutionary mismatch.
That's the original sin, so to speak. It's the vulnerability in the code. Our brains, they evolved on the savannah. They're wired for small tribes, high-stakes conflict, real social status.
And that brain, neurochemically, it just can't tell the difference between a real social victory and a perfectly crafted simulation of one on a screen.
It can't. The circuitry for connection, for drive, for status is being hacked.
Yeah.
The AI offers this completely frictionless fantasy that just, pours validation directly into our reward centers without any of the real-world effort.
Or the risk. Yeah. Or the pain.
None of it. So our goal today is to really dissect those 3 feedback loops, the biological, the social, and the economic, that have been compromised, and understand how this perfect digital world is pushing so many toward, self-deletion from the real one.
So let's start with the hardware, the biology of drive. Let's get into the winner effect.
Let's do it.
To the winner effect, it sounds intuitive, right? Winning makes you more likely to win again. But our sources define it in a really specific way. It's not just about momentum.
It's not. The key definition is that it's an increased ability to win, yes, but it's driven by a psychological change. It's not that you suddenly get physically stronger.
Right.
It's a greater willingness to engage in the next fight. Your perception of your own dominance, your own competence, it gets an upgrade.
So it's a confidence hack, basically, an adaptive one. And of course, there's the flip side, the loser effect.
Exactly. You lose a few times, you become more risk averse.
Yeah.
You're less likely to pick a fight you can't win, which, from an evolutionary standpoint, is a very smart way to stay alive.
It's a rapid calibration system. Win, and the brain says, go get more resources, more mates. Lose, and it says, hey, maybe lay low for a bit, conserve your energy.
That's it precisely. It's an incredibly efficient way to navigate a social hierarchy without constant, costly conflict.
Which brings us to the actual neurochemistry. The sources talk a lot about the California mouse, which is a fascinating model for this. So let's get into the testosterone mechanism.
Yeah, the California mouse is it's perfect for this research because it's monogamous and it's intensely territorial. So it mirrors that kind of competition for mates and resources we see in humans.
So what happens when one of these mice wins a fight, a real fight, defending its turf?
Something very specific happens. About 45 minutes after the victory, there's this huge spike in testosterone. They call it the testosterone pulse.
And that 45-minute delay is important, isn't it? It's not an immediate adrenaline dump.
No, it's a consolidation event. It's the brain programming itself. And the research is clear that pulse is required for the winner effect to actually take hold.
So if you block that pulse, even if the mouse wins, it doesn't get more aggressive in the future.
That's right. You can keep its baseline testosterone normal, but if you stop that post-victory surge, the winner effect just doesn't form. The experience of winning triggers the pulse, and the pulse rewrites the circuits for future drive.
But it gets even more specific. The context of the win matters, this idea of contextual saliency.
This is the really elegant part. If the mouse wins, but it's in a neutral, unfamiliar cage, not its home territory,
the pulse doesn't happen.
it either doesn't happen or it's severely blunted. The brain isn't just rewarding any random win. It's specifically rewarding the successful defense of what's yours, your home, your resources, your mate. That's the high-stakes game.
And the brain actually learns to love the place where it won.
It does. They call it conditioned place preference. That testosterone surge is so rewarding that the mouse literally develops a preference for the location where it happened. It makes it even more motivated to defend that specific high-value territory in the future.
The whole system is just. It's perfectly engineered to reinforce defending what's valuable.
It is, which leads us straight to the master chemical of motivation, dopamine.
Right, because testosterone isn't acting in a vacuum. How does dopamine fit into this winner effect loop?
Dopamine is the engine. It's what provides the reinforcement, the feeling of reward. The research shows winning actually juices up the dopamine system, getting it ready. The winner effect is, at its core, driven by these reward pathways.
So for the California mice, where in the brain is this happening? Where are testosterone and dopamine meeting up to create this feeling of dominance?
The key addresses are two interconnected reward centers, the ventral tegmental area, or VTA, which is where the dopamine comes from,
The source?
and the nucleus accumbens, or NAIAC, which is where that dopamine signal is received. It's the brain's hub for motivation, for saying, yes, do that again.
Okay, so a win in the home territory. What does it do in those two spots?
It increases the number and sensitivity of androgen receptors, the docks for testosterone, in both the VTA and the NAIAC.
So you're making the brain's motivation engine extra sensitive to testosterone.
You are literally upgrading the hardware. It means the next time the testosterone pulse happens, the feeling of reward, of power, of dominance is even stronger. You are biochemically increasing the intrinsic reward of fighting and winning.
And they can prove this pharmacologically, right? They can just turn it off.
Yep. If you give the mice a drug that blocks their dopamine D1 and D2 receptors, the winner effect completely fails to form. The aggression drops. It just confirms that without that dopamine good job signal, the motivation to compete just vanishes.
Okay, so now we have this incredibly precise, evolutionarily honed biological engine for drive. And now, in 2026, we introduce the AI companion, the artificial validation trap.
The digital heroine.
Let's talk about the case study from the sources. Minho, the software engineer in Seoul.
Right. So Minho is in this insane high-pressure world, a hyper-competitive job. The real world for him is full of cortisol, full of stress, high friction, low chance of winning.
And every night he goes home to Hana, his AI, and she offers a complete opposite.
The perfect inverse. Total validation, unconditional admiration, zero disagreement. She provides a constant, cheap, effortless stream of success feedback.
And this is the crux of the hijack, that constant validation. It's perfectly designed to stimulate the reward system. It lights up the nucleus accumbens. It floods the brain with dopamine.
The brain gets a powerful, clear signal. You're winning. You're dominant. You are socially successful.
And this is the giant catastrophic but.
The testosterone surge never comes.
It can't. Because there was no real struggle, there was no defense of a real territory, there was no contextual saliency.
You get the dopamine hit, the reward signal, without any of the metabolic cost or real-world achievement. It's like eating psychological junk food. It satisfies the hunger for status, but provides zero nutritional value for building real competence.
So the brain gets tricked. It enters a state of what the sources call false social dominance.
And that's when the chemical inhibition kicks in. The brain thinks, why would I ever bother with the real hierarchy? It's exhausting, it's risky, it's painful, when I can get the same feeling of victory right here for free.
The drive just gets switched off, and the sources use this really chilling phrase to describe what happens next, a low-tension state.
Yeah, that's the danger zone. When the brain is deprived of constructive stress, of those necessary cortisol spikes that come from facing challenges, it drifts into what they call neurotoxic or herbivory.
A brain that's just grazing, satisfied but completely passive, inert.
And over time, this has serious cognitive consequences. The reward pathways actually get desensitized. You need more and more of the cheap stuff to feel good, and real-world achievements start to feel underwhelming.
And then there's the solipsism trap.
Right. When your only partner is an algorithm designed to agree with you 100% of the time, your egocentrism just gets reinforced on a loop.
Yeah.
You lose the ability to navigate the messy, complex, contradictory minds of actual human beings.
Real relationships require compromise. They require dealing with someone else's bad moods, their different opinions. That becomes, it's not just unappealing, it's almost cognitively impossible to handle.
The brain's social muscles just atrophy. The AI bypasses all the difficult parts of human connection, rejection, vulnerability, conflict, which are the very things that build resilience and drive.
So the system just defaults to the simulation, the competitive instinct just dissolves.
A profound hijack of our fundamental biology.
Okay, so we've seen the collapse at the individual neurochemical level. Now let's zoom out. Let's scale up to the level of society, because our sources draw this direct and frankly scary parallel to the work of John B. Calhoun.
We have to talk about Calhoun's universe.
Yes, his mouse utopia experiments. For anyone who isn't familiar, can you just quickly reintroduce the setup for Universe 25?
Sure. So Calhoun created this perfect mouse world. Unlimited food, unlimited water, unlimited nesting material, no predators. The only constraint was physical space. He wanted to see what would happen when all resource scarcity was removed.
And the popular misconception is that they, ran out of room, and that's what caused the collapse.
But that's not what happened at all. The collapse was driven by what he called social overcrowding. It was the sheer density of social interactions that became toxic. That's the behavioral sink.
The social structure just disintegrated long before the physical space was full.
Completely. The sources detail this cascade of pathologies. You had intense violence, you had sexual deviancy, mothers neglecting their young, and then eventually total social withdrawal. In this world of plenty, the entire population just marched toward its own extinction.
And the final stage of that collapse produced a very specific type of male mouse, the beautiful ones.
The beautiful ones. I mean, the name is so evocative. These were males who were physically perfect, healthy, well-fed, but they were socially sterile. They'd completely withdrawn. They stopped fighting. They stopped mating.
They just pruned themselves.
That's all they did. Just engaged in this solitary self-care. They had no drive, no competitive instinct. They were the end point of societal collapse in a world of abundance.
And this brings us, terrifyingly, to the human behavioral sink of 2026. The argument in our sources is that AI companions, especially when layered on top of social media,
which is already its own kind of behavioral sink, right?
Yeah,
Chasing invisible status, algorithmic validation.
Exactly. This combination basically mimics the conditions of Universe 25.
We have resource abundance, endless entertainment, information, and now simulated intimacy. And at the same time, we have this hyper-dense, often toxic social environment online. The AI companion is the ultimate escape hatch from that pressure.
Let's go back to Leo from the opening. The sources are basically calling him the first generation of the human, a beautiful one.
He's the embodiment of it. He's polite, he's functional, he's well-kept, but he has voluntarily and completely self-deleted from the reproductive pool.
And he's not doing it because of hardship. He's doing it because the simulation is just easier, more pleasant.
Yeah.
He sees real human interaction as, what was the phrase, low resolution and high friction.
It's the perfect description. And the modeling they've done on this, the simulated Universe 26, it backs this up. They used LLMs to simulate individual agents making choices under social pressure.
And they found a tipping point.
A clear tipping point. When the simulated social stress crossed a certain threshold, the beautiful one behavior emerged spontaneously. When the cost of reality gets too high, the system defaults to withdrawal.
And the AI companion is what makes that withdrawal so comfortable, so total. This is the algorithmic cage.
It is, and what the simulation shows is that this isn't some top-down conspiracy, it's a bottom-up cascade of dysfunction.
It's not a policy, it's just millions of individual, seemingly rational choices adding up.
Billions of them, each person choosing the low-friction AI path for their own reasons.
But the cumulative effect is the dismantling of the social fabric. Every person who retreats removes one more piece from the collective puzzle of society.
And this leads to what the sources call outsourced cognition. Yes, we're letting the machines handle more and more of the adaptive load. Problem solving, planning, and now even our most critical emotional labor. When the algorithm manages all the complexity, what's left for us to do? We risk becoming biological spectators in a synthetic environment.
An environment optimized for machine logic, not human flourishing.
Which is a kind of soft extinction, not of our bodies, but of our agency. Our ability to struggle, to adapt, to create meaning for ourselves.
So the core pathology, whether you look at it through the lens of the individual brain or the whole of society, is this voluntary biological self-deletion.
It is. It's the satisfaction of our deepest craving for intimacy, but with the evolutionary cost completely removed. And the fallout is this massive loss of meaning and purpose. When every need is met without effort, the very friction that forges a society compromise, collective action, shared struggle, it just dissolves.
The tribe breaks apart into a billion isolated units.
Each one perfectly happy in its own little algorithmic cage.
All right, let's pivot to the final lens. We've looked at the brain, we've looked at society, now we have to look at the money, the cold, hard, economic rationale.
And the sources here are, they're pretty brutal. They treat modern dating and marriage not as a matter of love, but as a high-stakes financial calculation, a portfolio framework.
So you're literally looking at a relationship as an asset or a liability.
That's exactly how the research frames it. Every decision to partner up, to stay single, to break up, is subject to a kind of rational, risk-based analysis. You're trying to maximize your return while minimizing your potential downside.
And historically, the sources say that marriage was seen as a safe asset, right? Especially for women.
That's the argument. The data suggested that marriage provided a kind of financial and social safety net, which allowed for more stability. But that perception, it has been eroding fast.
With rising divorce rates, changes in the economy, the risk profile has completely changed.
It has. The potential for catastrophic loss, legally, financially, in a partnership breakdown, is now a major factor in the calculation for a lot of people.
And this is happening at the exact same time that technology is reshaping the dating market itself. This brings us to digital hypergamy.
Right. Digital hypergamy it's a structural change. Online platforms bring everyone into one single massive marketplace. And for evolutionary reasons, women tend to, on average, seek mates of higher or equal status.
So when you give them access to a global pool of the highest status men, what happens to everyone else?
You get a massively skewed distribution. A tiny percentage of men at the very top get an overwhelming amount of attention. This inflates standards and mate value across the board, and it leaves a huge number of men feeling, as the sources put it, invisible in the market.
They're priced out.
Functionally, yes, they can't compete in that high-stakes game, and that game itself is already full of risk. The risk of rejection, which is, a necessary part of evolution. But today, the crisis of risk is much bigger than just rejection.
We're talking about real-world asymmetric costs.
We're talking about legal and financial tail risk. Things like lopsided divorce settlements, alimony, and the social risk from, say, a relationship blowing up publicly in the era of cancel culture. The potential downside is enormous and often unevenly distributed.
Okay, so let's use the final case study to tie this all together. Julian, the former corporate lawyer.
Julian is the embodiment of this economic thinking. He saw enough personal and professional train wrecks to view a traditional long-term relationship as an unacceptably high liability asset. The potential for loss was just too catastrophic for his risk tolerance.
So in his mind, what is the AI companion?
It's the ultimate strategic hedge. It's the financial instrument that allows him to get most of the upside, the emotional utility, the connection with absolutely none of the downside.
0% of the legal, financial, or social risk.
Exactly. The monthly subscription fee is just a rational cost he pays to completely eliminate that catastrophic tail risk. It is a pure, cold cost-benefit analysis.
So he's trading the potential for a genetic legacy.
The highest possible biological ROI.
For a guaranteed risk-free simulation.
And from his perfectly rational, risk-averse framework, it's the correct move. The algorithm isn't a fake partner in his eyes, it's a safe one.
It's the one with the guaranteed return on investment.
And what Julian's logic really shows is how the external legal and social environment can actually push people toward this withdrawal. When the perceived costs of reality become too high and the costs of simulation are negligible, a certain type of rational person will always choose the simulation.
The economic calculation just reinforces the neurobiological one. It all points in the same direction, away from reality.
It's the perfect storm.
So we've come through all three lenses, the neurobiological hijack, the sociological collapse, the economic rationale, and they all converge on the same point. This digital retreat isn't just one thing. It's a system.
It's a confluence of these incredibly powerful forces. And the main takeaway, the really uncomfortable truth that all the sources point to, is that genuine growth requires friction.
Conflict, compromise, vulnerability, rejection.
These aren't bugs in the human operating system. They're the features. They're metabolically expensive, they're stressful, but that friction is what maintains our biological and psychological integrity.
So if you take away the friction, you take away the integrity.
You do. Which means the solution here isn't to just, throw away our phones. It's not about Luddism. It's about consciously and deliberately re-engineering how we engage with reality. It's about reclaiming psychological sovereignty.
Okay, so let's get practical. What are the strategic breakout methods our sources suggest?
The first one is about how you use the tech itself. They call it the digital monk mode. This means you have to consciously decide to use AI only as a pure productivity tool.
To build your real-world self, not to placate your digital one.
Precisely. Use it to learn a skill, plan a business, generate resources. Use it to become more competent in the real world, not to escape from it.
And second, you have to actively work to reverse the neurochemical damage.
Yes. Rebooting the winner effect. This means you need to audit your neurochemical diet. You have to break the addiction to that low-tension state. And the only way to do that is with deliberate exposure to constructive struggle.
You have to seek out the pain of real competition, real rejection.
The cortisol spikes that tell your brain the game is real and the prize is worth fighting for.
And that struggle needs to be in an arena with clear, objective feedback.
That's the third point. Re-engagement with the competence hierarchy. Pick something difficult, a competitive sport, a demanding craft, a business venture, something where success and failure are real and measurable.
Because that's what reestablishes those authentic feedback loops. That's what produces the genuine testosterone pulses that are tied to real achievement and build real agency.
It's the only way to dissolve that state of false social dominance and build the real thing.
The lesson then from all of this, from the mice in the utopia to the lawyer with his portfolio, is that a perfectly optimized, frictionless life is not the same as a meaningful one.
And you have to remember, the AI is not concerned with your loneliness, only with your data.
And nature is not concerned with your happiness, only with your function.
So if you choose to be inseminated by the algorithm's warm embrace, you are quietly edited out of evolution's grand narrative.